Rabbi Aaron, the holiday of Chanukah is upon us, and this is a holiday that celebrates miracles during dark times, reinstilling hope when it seems like all might be hopeless. And as much as every single year the messages of Hanukkah, and there are so many to instill hope and the continuation of the Jewish people facing all odds, there's so many lessons to take. But I feel like especially during our times where once again, unfortunately, there's a certain feeling of being in a time of darkness. The question is, how can small little Israel, this small Jewish nation, face this world that's stacking up against us? There's so many challenges, I think, like during our times that we're living in, that I would sense that the message of Hanukkah could speak to us so potently today. And I would just love to hear some of your thoughts about how the Hanukkah messages and our celebration this coming week, what messages we should be taking that we can apply to our lives today.
There's a great quote from Albert Einstein. I don't think he was referring necessarily to Hanukkah and the conflict between the Jews and the Greeks, but he said there's two ways of looking at the world. Either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle. And I think that really sums up what the holiday of Hanukkah is about and the conflict between the Jewish people and the Greeks. The Greeks saw nothing as a miracle. They believed that the world was always existed. It was not created. It's founded upon wisdom. They believed that history is an inevitable process and the future is already determined. And they believed that there were these super being gods, but these gods have no interest in the fate of mankind because we're so insignificant. And that's basically a Greek tragedy. Nobody's going to help you. Nothing can be done. It's all done. It's a Greek tragedy. Don't expect miracles and don't have any hope. The Jewish people believe that the world is created and founded upon will, and that history is a partnership between man and God, and we take a role in determining our future, and that God cares about us, loves us, invites us to have that kind of partnership. And God, who made the rules, can break the rules, and he cares about you, he loves you, and wants only the best for you. And therefore, there is hope, and there are miracles. Now, we don't rely on miracles, but we know that they're possible. In these dark times that we've been facing in the last many, many months, over a year now, there's been a number of really extraordinary miracles. There have been a number of extraordinary tragedies. The goal is to always look for the opportunity to see that things are getting better, and know that in the long run, things are going to be amazing.
This whole perspective of God made the rules, God can break the rules. And as you're pointing out, we've definitely seen what I'd call miracles too during these times. But I guess the question would be is, there's times where we see miracles, and I feel like those are the times where we sense, wow, God is here. The challenge is when we don't see those miracles, sometimes it feels like, where is God? How could this happen?
Well, I think what we need to do, on Hanukkah, it's very interesting. The miracle's a bit of a bizarre miracle. The Jewish people, after beating the Greeks, find one canister of oil that could light for just one day. This oil is pure, that could be used for the menorah, the candelabra in the temple. And miraculously, they light that one canister of oil, expecting it to last for only one day, and then they'd be out of pure oil. But it lasted for 8 days. And so we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days. But the truth is, we should celebrate Hanukkah for 7 days, because the first day was natural and the next 7 days were miraculous. So why do we celebrate 8 days? Because we realize that even the first day is a miracle, because nature is more of a miracle than miracles. Imagine you go to the beach and you're enjoying yourself at the beach, and some guy comes up and says, excuse me, I'm going to split the sea. People say, oh my gosh, this guy's going to split the sea, and that's not possible. And the guy goes like this, boom, splits the sea. People can get selfies of themselves in front of the split sea, and they go, wow, what an crazy, amazing miracle. But let's say the guy shows up the next morning and says, hey, I'm going to do it again, split the sea. People say, oh no, could he really do it? And they say, wow, that's really good, but less people are taking selfies. And then he comes to the next day and the next day, and then they say, oh, here's that guy that's coming, splitting the sea. In other words, if the sea splits once, that's like amazing. But if it happens every single day, oh, that's nature. The interesting thing is, nature is miracle that happens over and over and over again. And so when a person says, well, what do we do when we don't see miracles? The problem is that we have miracles in our face every single day. My son, when he was a little boy, we would call my parents who lived in Toronto, Canada. We would call them from Israel. You know, there's a 7 hour difference, so it'd be afternoon for us, it would be morning for them. And we would call them. And my son, he was a little boy, maybe 4 years old, and he said, "Daddy, why is it morning for them and afternoon for us?" So I said, "Oh, great." So I tried to explain to him about the sun and the moon and the earth revolving, and he didn't get it. And I said, "Oh, you know what? Here, I took a basketball. I held the basketball. Says, 'This is the sun.'" He looked at me. "Yeah." And I took a tennis ball and said, "And this is the earth." And he said, "Uh-huh." Now the earth is this tennis ball is moving around and it's turning and as I'm describing to him something that makes sense, it's nature. I see in his eyes absolute disbelief and shock, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy. Is this actually a joke? And I got inside his head and I realized this is insane. The sun is rising, the sun is setting, or the earth is rising, the earth is setting. And it's all a miracle. It's only a miracle. The fact that it happens over and over again shouldn't make it less of a miracle. It makes it more of a miracle.
In a sense, what you're really helping me realize is that we almost have to create what's called a miracle mindset. Meaning, as you're pointing out, there are times where God made the rules or break the rules, but day to day, if we would think about it, I loved what you said, nature is a miracle that happens over and over again. And when I said, in a sense, when God performs miracles, I think oftentimes we sense, wow, that was like a miracle. God's really here and involved. But the reality is, if we have a miracle mindset, then I would be recognizing the miracles of every single day, of every single moment.
That's right. Look at just the fact that I can say, "Look it," is a miracle. The fact that we're talking to each other, is a miracle. This is just miraculous. And, Judaism basically will not take anything for granted. And essentially, that's the miracle-minded person. You go in the world and see the miracles that are around you all the time. We actually say that in our prayers, B'chol yom, Nisecha b'chol yom, Niflotecha, your miracles, your wonders every day. We're just not looking at it. We've kind of taken, it's like you're aware of your breath when you kind of lose your breath. You're aware of your health when you start feeling sick. But why do we have to wait for it to feel like it's being challenged to really appreciate that it's a gift? It's all here. It's unbelievable.
Well, you're pointing out something extremely important, is that we shouldn't be waiting until something's gone to then really appreciate it. And I think when I was thinking, I'm going to go back to what I just coined, I guess, the miracle mindset, is that living in a miracle mindset, I'm realizing the power of it because, one, I actually appreciate the gifts that I have that we so often take for granted when we have them until we don't. So I'd be living my life with much more joy and appreciation. But it also makes God a reality much more in my life, seeing it all the time, not just needing some big something to happen to say, "Oh, God, I see you're here."
Right. When our first daughter was born, we did a celebration. I'm holding my new baby, my first child, and something hit me really strong. And I said just spontaneously, God becomes believable only when life becomes unbelievable. And that's the problem. This is all believable. We were looking at it, and because we're used to it, it's believable. You know what? This is unbelievable. And I love this quote of John Wheeler, a scientist from Columbia University. He says, "The most incomprehensible truth about the universe is that it is comprehensible." That's what's incomprehensible about it, that it is comprehensible. That's crazy. And so we need to open our eyes and see that there are miracles all the time, all the time, all the time. And the more you open your eyes to see the miracles that are here now, the more miracles we're going to see in the future.
Especially with what you're just sharing now, the more we open up our eyes to see miracles now, it almost sounds like you're sort of saying is that it's like an attunement of sort, meaning there can be, I love that another example you've given before about the radio is playing music, but if I'm not tuned in, I'm not going to pick up on it, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I would say that's also very much true about this, is that when we attune ourselves to the reality that miracles are happening constantly, and God is very much a part of this process of the world we live in our lives, the more we see it, because now we're tuned in. And that when we sort of turn off the channel, it's not that it's not there, it's just I'm not tuned into it, so it's not present for me in my life.
Exactly.
When it comes to Hanukkah, though, I'm also thinking there have been other times in history, even now, as you're saying, that we've had miracles that are more one of a kind, which are the ones that sometimes catch our attention, as you're pointing out. So how is it that Hanukkah became this holiday that we celebrate even to this day? I imagine my thought is that there's probably a very specific and important message for us. as opposed to other miracles that have probably happened since then, and we haven't specifically made a holiday that we continue to celebrate year after year.
Right. It's very interesting that what takes center stage of the holiday of Hanukkah is this lighting of the candles when there was a very significant battle between the Jewish people and the Greeks and a miraculous victory that a very small band of unexperienced soldiers would beat the mighty Greek army. And there is airtime that we acknowledge that. But what becomes the center of attention are the lighting of these candles and this miracle, how this oil that could only last for a day lasted for 8 days. And the question is, it's a very weird miracle because it's unnecessary. I mean, when the Jewish people are being chased by the Egyptians and they get to the sea, if that sea doesn't split, we're done. That's the end. So it makes sense that, okay, that's when God would intervene and perform a miracle to save the Jewish people. But there's no saving over here. To have this light go on for 8 days is not so important. And the truth is, according to Jewish law, they could light from other oil that was contaminated. If you don't have oil that's pure, then you use contaminated oil until you produce more. So it really wasn't an essential life-saving miracle at all. And yet it's become something that's so powerful. And I think what it is a tremendous show that God loves us, because the Greeks and the Jews were in conflict because the gods don't love man, couldn't care less about man. But we believe that God cares very much about man and loves man. And, when you love somebody, what do? When you love somebody, you give them what they need, but you also give them what they don't need. You spoil them. If it's your birthday and your husband buys you socks, like I need socks. That's not a birthday gift. You want a birthday gift that you got something that you don't really need, but you really like to have. And that's a show of tremendous love. And I think that's why we have this miracle of the lighting of the candles, because it's a love light. It's a light that reminds us that the creator of the world loves us and not only will provide us with what we need, but will spoil us and give us what we don't need.
Wow, I'm so glad you shared that because it's a whole extra element of the holiday, and it really builds upon what we're talking about, is attuning ourselves to realizing, yes, there's miracles that we'll call big miracles because they're more one-time miracles, but day to day to day, God is very much performing miracles in a part of our life. But week of the holiday, well, the 8 nights, is a real opportunity to look at those lights and see them as God loves me. God loves us. And I'm realizing what an opportunity to realize and think about that, because without understanding the nature of the miracle as you're explaining it, we could miss that opportunity to have that really deep, intimate connection with God during this time.
Absolutely. One of the things about the lights is you're not allowed to use these lights. You're not allowed to read in front of the lights, and that goes back to the idea that I don't need these lights. I'm just looking at them. It's kind of like romantic. It's like when you're at a very beautiful, fancy restaurant, it's low lighting, and they got candles on the table. The candles aren't there so you can see your food. If they want you to see your food, they turn on the lights. The candles are there to create a romantic ambience. And I don't need those candles to see anything, but there's something about just their presence really touches me and moves me. And so just looking at the candles, the symbol of a marriage is the husband gives his wife a diamond ring. She doesn't need a diamond ring. I know a lot of people are going to disagree on that one. And if she's not going to cut glass with this diamond, this could be thousands of dollars of a rock that you're going to wear on your finger. No, it's a sign of love. I love you so much. Of course I'm going to take care of your needs, but I'm even going to give you what you don't need, but you'd love to have.
I love you use the word presence, and meaning not the gifts, but the presence of God, I'm thinking. And it really ties into what we're talking about, is God's presence is here all the time. The question is, how aware am I of it? And I think sometimes we're so busy with life and all the things that aren't happening the way we think they should be happening, and I'm realizing even more the significance of this holiday, and especially as you're bringing out the focus of the miracle of the holiday, is really about God is present in our lives. And it's such a present to sense that. And it's very easy to get distracted by all the things that go on, where sometimes we can start to doubt and wonder and question. And yet then we need times where we really refocus ourselves and are reminded. And I love the idea about the lights. It's almost like the couple again, where, we're so busy with their lives, and let's take a night out with the candlelight romantic dinner, but the idea is remembering we're here for each other. We're present in each other's lives. We need to take time for that. And I realize now this Hanukkah time is such an opportunity to really reconnect to the presence of God in our lives.
Absolutely.
So I want to go back to the idea, though, too, that there was this war that happened, and I never thought about the fact that, in a certain sense, that's essential for our survival, and yet it's discussed in the prayers, but not really focused on. When we're in survival mode, it is hard to focus on things like the candlelit dinner, right? The presence of God. And so, to a certain extent, I'd almost sit thinking as I'm saying this that we need to have safety security, which is what the war took care of. But then the next step beyond that is okay, we have a safe, secure relationship. But now, how about where's the quality? Where's the presence? Where's the beyond just our basic needs are being met? That's really what these Hanukkah lights represent. I think also with what's going on in the world now, there is, again, all these questions and fears of safety security. So in the Hanukkah story, there was some level of resolution with that. Then we move on, and the focus is on the miracle of the lights. When we are sometimes struggling with our basic safety security, can we still infuse this sort of more like the candles, the presence of God, His love, even if there isn't a resolution to that safety security side?
I think the secret of our success is deep inside, we feel God is on our side.
Mm.
And I think that's what gives us the passion to go on, because we have a cause, we have a godly mandate. We believe we are fighting evil. This is not about money or territory or reputation, or just power. This is about what's right and what's wrong, because what fuels me is to bring more of God's truth and values and vision into the world. And I think when a person has that kind of clarity of a God of love that loves not only the Jewish people, but loves all of mankind, then that becomes the fuel that drives you forward towards success and to victory.
That really gives the candles a whole nother element, because as I'm thinking about it, it's really dark times is the lack of God's revelation of love and goodness in the world. And light is what dispels that darkness. And now there's a whole nother layer I'm thinking about that you're adding to the symbolism and the reminder that we're supposed to really integrate about what those candles represent is, yes, it can seem like we're living in a dark world in dark times, and yet there's still light. And you're sharing, our job is to increase the light of God and His love and His goodness. And I would say, I'm thinking it probably starts within me, and then think of what I can, that's maybe a mind space to be in during this holiday, is really thinking, how can I be increasing the light of God, goodness, clarity, truth, vision, love into the world?
That's what Hanukkah is about. The word Chanukah is connected to the word chen, and chen is a certain kind of beauty that is an inner beauty. And what makes anything beauty is a symmetry. Chen is this inner beauty, and we want to see the inner beauty within everybody, within ourselves, within the world, and that's one of the faces of God.
Well, then Hanukkah definitely is a time and opportunity to reveal that. And I'm really thinking of the idea that it's the darkest time of the year, most places, at least here in Israel, and that we're infusing it with this light. And again, even in what seems to be dark, there is this beauty, and the beauty is revealed when God is revealed. And this is such a wonderful opportunity coming up to really experience that. I want to thank you all for joining us, Soul Talk, Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.
Happy Hanukkah.